Welcome back to Remove Before Race, guys. I'm here at my favorite test facility in the world for cars, which is Immendingen, a secret place that Mercedes-Benz tests all of their vehicles. And we've got one of their best-selling cars ever, the newest version of the GLC Coupe. Come with me, let's pull the covers off their new SUV Coupe. All right, let's go, guys. I love a good unveil. And unlike usually we do it from the front, you gotta do it from the... I'm just gonna pull the covers off because that sounded a bit in my head. There we go. You can see the lights here. Looking good, teasing us. Let's pull the cover off. And there is your GLC Coupe. So what do you think of that? That was my first look of it as well. Trying to take in kind of the rear shape, which is very familiar looking to the previous generation, which is a good thing. So that was a great looking car. And of course the light is your main kind of focus here, isn't it? That's a handsome looking light. It's nice and dark. We like dark lights with strong red graphics. Nice strong 3D tick in there as well. Very similar to most Mercedes-Benz coupes at the moment, right? But it suits this body shape quite nicely. One thing that immediately you notice is kind of the way that it's linked, and we'll talk more about this later. It's the same material as that. What does this bode for the future? Design language and stuff. We'll talk about it. It looks good. So my friends, really important car today because without even going to the lengths of AMG, and we'll discuss AMG in a minute, the GLC Coupe gives us a lot of that kind of fun and emotion and sportiness out of a standard Mercedes-Benz that you can kind of live with every day, which is why this car is kind of sold so well. So today, really, I just want to see, is it that great partner that it was in the previous generation? Has it built upon it? Is it the same? Is it going to be able to justify the hike and the price increase as well? Because this is a big topic these days. Can it still attract that massive customer base? How's it going to do it? What's changed? What have they added? What's happening in the future? Let's find out together, and I'm going to show you every single detail, then we'll decide, is this still the hero that it used to be? So guys, today's episode of RBR is once again sponsored by my favorite wallet company, The Ridge. But wait, this isn't about wallets. They don't just make wallets anymore. They've taken their same attention to detail to other products now. For example, they've just introduced what is the Ridge Ring and the brand new Ridge Watch that I cannot wait to show you. So guys, I've got a full selection of the Ridge Rings here. It comes in a nice rugged box, as you can see here. We're going to start with the one that matches our wallets best, which is the 3K carbon fiber. Every ring has a beveled edge and then a convex inside to make it super comfortable, as you can see, and is designed to really work with you regardless of what you're doing, whether it's heavy duty work or just casual wearing. And then every box comes with an extra silicone ring as well. There's a ton of different styles, like this gorgeous navy blue with the chamfered edge, and it's got some real heft to it. Speaking of heft, this one, the gold, I did not expect to like this one as much. And they have this amazing lost and resizing protection plan. So even if you lose your ring or you gain or lose weight, you get the option of 2 future exchanges for the same ring. How brilliant is that? So guys, that's the new Ridge Ring, available in a host of different materials with that replacement plan as well. Is pretty cool. Now, if you go to my link, make sure you use the link. It's ridge.com/RBR. My code won't work, so you need to use the link, which is ridge.com/RBR. Can't recommend this enough. I can't wait to show you more of the watches as well. Please do support our regular sponsors. You've seen how much we've used these guys because they're awesome. Now, back to the episode. It's amazing, isn't it, how prevalent these SUV coupes have become in the market now. I still remember the time where a coupe SUV was something that manufacturers were still testing the waters with, and it was something that all of us would kind of turn our noses up against as an idea, because why would you take something that's inherently so practical, like an SUV, and slice off, you know, half of that practicality and leave it, you know, basically not as useful as it previously was? But we should have really predicted this, right? Because whenever a manufacturer kind of focuses less on logic and more on emotion and aesthetic, wonderful things usually follow. And that's kind of what's happened in the SUV coupe space. And now today, when you look at this space, you look at the advent of all these hyper SUVs, all in the same type of body shape. You look at all the EVs generally preferring this shape as well, to be a bit sportier as well. You can see that the SUV coupe, if anything, you'll find more of them in manufacturers than you will a standard estate shape SUV. So really, it's kind of taken on a niche of its own, and it's not a niche anymore. This car is one of the best-selling Mercedes cars in its previous generation across the board. I told you how the GLC outsold the C-Class, their best-selling car. One of every 4 of those was a coupe, and in my estimation, the previous generation GLC Coupe was the best-looking of the SUV coupes across any manufacturer. And I genuinely believe that, because it was a trickle-down effect, A, of how amazing the AMG was, being a 7-year king of the Nürburgring, an amazing car. That trickle-down effect, all customers wanting to be part of that wonderful story. But then just the fact that when you looked at it compared to even the normal, still handsome SUV version, it just looks so much better. It made that car look like a salesman estate car. And that's what I loved about the previous gen GLC. But the other thing this car has to battle is the multitude now of EVs of a similar shape and a similar purpose, similar look, etc., etc. It's not as easy as it was perhaps 7 to 8 years ago when you just had the bigger, chunkier coupe SUVs, and the GLC, you know, was making hay while the sun was shining. Let's see if it can get to that stage. The thing that it has in its benefit is that it takes a lot from the upper tier of Mercedes-Benz in terms of its basis. So it sits on the MRA2 platform, which is of course shared with C-Class and S-Class. And it's not just the platform, because alongside that comes all the benefits of technology, like digital light, like the MBUX interior, and a multitude of things inside and out that I'll share with you in this video that the previous generation obviously didn't benefit from. Now, some basic things about GLC Coupe that you need to understand. First of all of them are hybrid in some way, either mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid, and I'll explain that in a minute. Apart from that, they all come standard with formatting, so you can't buy a GLC Coupe without formatting now, which is great. And they all come with the 9-speed automatic gearbox as well. So that is your standard baseline. Most of the engines are all 4-cylinder, and there will be a 6-cylinder diesel mild hybrid at some point in the future. Now, in terms of mild hybrid, what is that? That is essentially us having the integrated starter generator, or the ISG, that sits in between our engine and our gearbox. This gives you a little boost of 200 Newton meters of torque and a tiny bit of horsepower. Daily, essentially, you get no delay when putting down power, particularly from starting off. And it's a really nice feeling and makes the engines always feel super responsive, which is really important in this day and age versus EVs with their immediate power. Or you can get the full-on plug-in hybrid like our car here. And this gives you a 31.2 kilowatt battery, which is actually packaged way better compared to the predecessor in terms of boot space that you're left with, and I'll show you that in a minute. And this gives you a number of benefits. First of all, of course, you get electric range. So for example, like we saw in the GLC 300e SUV, you got about 61 miles worth of range, which is pretty damn impressive for a standard plug-in hybrid Mercedes-Benz. You also get massive torque. So that car had 333 brake horsepower and then 750 Newton meters of torque. So quite a lot of benefits. It is a lot heavier, as we know. As we drove it, it felt a little bit heavier. We'll see what the coupe is like in the future. In terms of suspension, that's the other place that we've had a few changes. So a bit more comfortable now, which is great. It's a new 4-link front, multi-link rear suspension, a bit more focus on comfort, which is great. Or you can option up to the Airmatic suspension, which now gives you a big benefit because you get the 4.5-degree rear wheel steering, which will be great in terms of driving dynamics for our coupe. So that's your basic changes. It's quite a grown-up car in that sense. I think you've got a lot of engine choices, a lot of tech coming in, which you'll see a lot of inside actually. But now let's talk about the design, because it's changed quite a bit, but a lot of familiarity, a lot of nice things still carried on from the last generation one. I still love the last generation car. I think it looks amazing. You know, it just had the right muscularity. Like I said, it always looked miles better than the BMW counterpart. And this one, I don't think it's any different in that regard. It's a bit softer, I think. I think it's safe to say that we all really like the new GLC SUV, and this is more of that same flavor. So you've got the brand new lights, which look quite lovely, linking into a much wider grille with the lovely stars. All GLC coupes get the star grille now, which is nice. This is the AMG line, of course, so you've got the typical AMG A-wing here, the off-roady type design, and your air curtains through there. It looks good, it looks muscular. You even got your bonnet domes. This is a good looking car. Yeah, that's that typical muscular GLC Coupe that we love so much. Nice and low, muscular shoulders, nice staggered wheels, nice thick wheels on the rear. These are 20s. I like the fact that they've got the painted wheel arches, and on GLC Coupe, you can only get the painted wheel arches, which is great, so they'll always remain sporty. Similarly, you'll always have this larger A-shaped AMG style grille, even in the avant-garde version for the Coupe. So it's going to stand out a little bit versus the SUV, always being, you know, a bit more sporty looking. The front, I can kind of see the EV design language creeping into your standard Mercedes-Benz now. We're going to see the new E-Class very soon in the future, and do you see how kind of the lights are starting to link to the grille and all this kind of thing? I feel like it's all gearing towards that kind of EQ front panel look, and I'm terrified about this because even this I'm okay with, you know, a little bit of light touching grille, we're used to that with BMWs, but a full-on panel can get in the bin as far as I'm concerned, so I hope that they're not planning that for facelifts, etc. This is great. I always prefer Coupe over SUV. I think it's worth the trade-off because it looks so good, and I still think this is probably one of the best. You look at the rear, I know what you're thinking, it's not a lot of imagination going on here in terms of rear lights when it comes to coupes with Mercedes-Benz. The rear lights tend to look the same, but they look really good on GLC Coupe, right? You can't fault that. And what's quite different here is they've actually linked the rear lights with this black panel that doesn't light up because the EVs all have the straight line across the back, but it is in that same similar material if you look closely. And I imagine on a lighter color, this is going to be very, very obvious. And it's probably going to suit the shape of the car exceedingly well. I like the chrome exhaust and the diffuser at the bottom as well. The muscularity of the rear arches is really nice. I imagine a spoiler on this is going to look quite fetching as well. So yeah, what do you guys think? I think it's from the rear, which is what is so important with these SUV coupes. That's a good looking car. That being said, one thing I would question is it that much better looking now than the really good looking standard SUV? Because they've upped the game on that a little bit, and the lights are quite similar between the two of them. Is it enough now in the coupe, or is the SUV that much better looking that you probably edge towards practicality? I don't know the answer to that question. I want to know what you guys think, because you know, there's a lot of similarities going on here, even the linking of the light bar a little bit. I'm not sure. I would probably still side to coupe, but the SUV is a good looking car now. Now let's talk about the more exciting performance models that are coming. I'm going to have a guess at what the AMG is going to be. We're going to start with the GLC 43, probably using a similar setup to the C43, which means that new made by hand, one man, one engine unit, the M139L, which is the 4-cylinder, of course, shared, you know, in a lot of ways with the new C63 that we won't talk about at the moment. That is a really great engine, and it produces 408 bhp, 500 newton meters of torque. In this car, is it going to be a slow 0-60? We don't know yet. Maybe starting with a 5, maybe starting with a 4 if we're lucky. But I found the C43 at least to be such a fun car to drive. So I've got high expectations of this car. I also think it's going to look absolutely killer because this grille is so suited for the Panamericana grille. We've seen it running around with wheels that the old GLC 63 used to have. The nice round exhaust tips look fantastic on it as well. Maybe a nice little spoiler, really give it a wonderful stance. So I'm very, very excited about the 43. The 63, I'm perhaps not as apprehensive as I am on the C63. That was such a V8 icon. And yes, the GLC was, but I don't think it's as much of a topic as the C. I'd welcome your opinions on that because it's going to look really quite crazy from what I've seen, you know, even with all the spy camo all around it. It seems to sound better, but who knows whether we can trust Nürburgring videos or not. But like I said, less of a topic. You're less worried about certain bits of the heaviness in an SUV as well. You know, is it going to have the same accolades as the previous car? Let's see if AMG decide to actually do a lap time with it. That'll speak volumes, I think, whether they even attempt it or not. Either way, I think I'm a little bit more excited about these than I was about the C AMG. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what happens. The other thing that we spoke about was potential EVs. Will there be a fully electric version of this? It would make sense. I think that they're going to step away from the EQ naming convention sooner rather than later. So why do another EQC when you could just have a GLC EV, right? And the car's kind of geared up for it in the design already. It would be a simple bar light there and your silly EQ panel in the front. The rear is geared up for it. You could just have that single bar light, etc. And I'm sure that they've designed the architecture in a way to slide in a much larger battery. So that'll probably come. So that's a GLC Coupe. Love to hear what you guys have to think about my opinions on it and what you think generally. There's a lot that's changed inside versus previous generation as well. So let's check all of that out and see what the GLC has to offer. So here we are inside the GLC Coupe. No surprises here inside, but that's kind of a good thing because this is pretty much one of the best interiors that Mercedes makes at the moment. And I think that'll continue on when you see some of the newer cars that have, you know, the big hyper screens and stuff. I'm not personally a massive fan of those, but this interior with the S-Class style MBUX in the middle, I lived with it with my SL and I love it. I think it's just the right size. It's so easy to kind of access and use, and particularly in the C-Class ilk of car, which the GLC follows, it's slightly angled towards you, so it's a really comfortable kind of user interface and a space to be in for the driver. And just the structure of the interior, if you're used to the previous GLC, it's a big step up in terms of how luxurious the whole thing looks. I still think it's on par with S-Class in terms of the way the trims and the general interior is shaped, the vents. You've got the ambient lighting, which is so much more extensive than it used to be. You had to kind of look for it in GLC, like in C-Class, but here it's really well done. So this is going to be a big, big upgrade. The other thing that you finally get in here, even though it's not as big as some Mercedes cars, is the panoramic roof for the first time in the GLC Coupe. So it's a slightly larger sunroof, I guess you could say. It's not a traditional pan roof because it doesn't go all the way to the back, but you know, it's a nice addition to bring more light in, particularly for our rear occupants. You have slightly less headroom in the Coupe, though I don't really feel it. And again, comfort in the back, well, we'll check that out in a minute. But again, looking quite similar to the previous generation, so that's a good thing. So just like we found in S-Class, you've got your digital screen in front with a fantastic range of different screens that you can go to, like classic to sport. And it's really easy to change in between them. You've got then understated, which changes the ambient lighting color, and then full-on maps, for example, full screen, and all of this customizable to your own liking. GLC gets a special one, which is off-roading, which undoubtedly you'll see in the future in stuff like G-Class, and that off-road screen translates into here as well. And you remember something amazing we showed you on the SUV, which was the invisible bonnet, which the Coupe also avails. So not only have you got all the off-roading screens as you'd want, you also get the invisible bonnet for off-roading if you want to. Mercedes wanted to keep that in here, that if you're serious about using this in off-road, you can, and it's not just an SUV by name. So as always, customization, UI, etc. in the Mercedes car is fantastic. You've got your AMG line in here. So this is the AMG steering wheel, exactly the same as the one in my E63S final edition. They've redone the spokes here, so it's much easier to kind of hold on to and maneuver, which is very nice. Nice big paddles as well. I still hate these touch things, and I hope that they change soon. But apart from that, it frames the interior in a pretty nice way. Like I said, this is a really nice place to sit, as you can see, particularly when it's been spec'd so nicely. Now, let's have a look what it's like sitting in the rear. It feels very reminiscent of the previous generation. So you haven't got like masses and masses of leg room or headroom, etc. But you know what, I'm 5'10", and as usual, you know, you've got a little bit of space in there. It's nice to have the larger pan roof now available in here because you bring a little bit more light. Would I be more happy in an SUV? Probably. I think I probably would be because you just get more light, you get more headroom, etc. But it's by no means some kind of a compromise that you're going to be, you know, not comfortable. And plus, you know, with the new door cards, with the ambient lighting and the entire way that this interior is structured, it's just a nice place to sit in, particularly if you spec it really nicely. Now, a quick word on the boot space. I did want to show you how much you're left with a big battery in the back as well. Now, before I show you the boot space, this is where you should put the plug for charging in a plug-in hybrid. And I'm referring directly to SL, GT2 door, GT4 door, where they've all shoved it on the bloody back bumper. That's the proper place. You know, that's the right place to do it. Anyway, rant over. There is a big 31.2 kilowatt battery hiding under there. And despite that, compared to previous generation, you've got, you know, 50 litres more compared to that. And the nice thing is a flat loading bay, you know, so you're not kind of like in the C63 trying to manage certain luggage in certain places. It's nice, and you also get, in fact, a little place to put your charging cable here, which is perfect as well. So that's a good effort. And in the fully, or the mild hybrid full combustion version of the car, you've got even more space. Again, even larger than the previous generation standard combustion cars. So that's a good amount of space, even in the hybrid. And of course, you've got your split folding seats, etc. as well, which is then plenty of space. So yeah, nice job there. So guys, that's your new GLC Coupe. Love to know what you guys think about it. I think it's a very handsome car. Excited to drive it, excited to see what the performance versions are going to be like as well. So yeah, hopefully that'll be soon, and I'll see you guys next time.